So you've had a pretty wild journey so far. You've survived an attempted murder, and from that, gone through 11 surgeries. You've also survived a skydiving accident where you broke your neck. So let's start with the attempted murder, kind of paint the picture here. What led to this?
Well, at the time, I was a detective. I worked for a sheriff's department, but I was assigned to the Drug Enforcement Administration as a task force officer. So we uh, we had an informant, and he told us about an individual from Virginia coming up to New York to pick up a load of cocaine. So, you know, this is what we do. So it's kind of routine. We didn't know the hotel he was staying at, so we searched all the registers in the hotels right outside of New York City, right across the bridge, and we found him. And he was in a hotel. He paid cash, so we knew when he was leaving the hotel. And so this was the second day of our surveillance, and it was a Friday in the summer. So we were kind of relaxed because we knew that there's no way he'd be picking up a load of coke on a Friday and then sitting on it all weekend and then driving down to Virginia on Monday. And he was here with his girlfriend, so we just knew there's no way. We knew that he was going to be sightseeing all weekend, Sunday night or Monday morning, pick it up, run right down the turnpike back down to Virginia. So, again, it was our second day on surveillance, and it was Friday. And, since we were working for the federal government, we had a thing called Federal Fridays, which really meant that around 12 o'clock, we'd like to break off whatever we're doing if it wasn't too important and go to happy hour, right? We were younger, obviously, and, so again, we called it Federal Fridays. And this Friday was no different. It was beautiful out. It was just a great day. So we're on surveillance, and I don't know if you know New York City at all, so we're in New Jersey, and we follow our suspect across the bridge into Washington Heights in New York. And, at the time, that was a big money laundering area in New York. So, we were in the right area, right? So, we were following him, and he would go to bodega, and he would park, talk on his phone. And, so he wasn't really doing anything exciting or anything that like was urgent, right? So I called my sergeant and I said, "Hey, it's Federal Friday. What are we doing? Can we get out of here?" And he's of course like, no, one more hour. And we had 10 undercover vehicles on this guy, right? So it was a big job, and we ran the risk though with all those vehicles of somebody making a mistake, right? And then this guy figuring out that we're on him. So you know, we kind of should have scaled it back, like, and then picked them up on Sunday and then, finished our job. But it didn't work out that way. So within that last hour that, my sergeant said the one more hour, like things changed. So the mood in the morning was very, casual. But all of a sudden it got dark, and just it got tense. And I'm very susceptible to that. Like like I used to call it my spidey senses, right? Like, I'd get like weirded out, and I never knew why. And so, you know, he started to move again, and our sergeant called us on the radio, and he said, "Hey, whoever's behind the vehicle, if he goes to the U-turn by his hotel, pull him over and identify him." Now, this is just a very bizarre order. We don't do that stuff. We're undercover, right? So we're like dressed in shorts, t-shirts, So you know, I couldn't understand why he would even have us do it. So I called him up and I said, "What are we doing? Like, why are we doing that?" Because it's really dangerous, right? Because he could panic, because he sees now an undercover detective, uh, or we could just blow the whole job, So Sergeant said that his boss, our big boss, the group supervisor, was sitting in a building in Newark, and he wanted him identified, right? So usually we would have a marked unit do it. But Fort Lee at the time, they were too busy. So that's why we had to do it, right? So All right, no problem. He starts heading over a bridge back towards Jersey, and there's all kinds of construction on the bridge. So all the units get separated, and some of them get lost, the usual stuff on surveillance. And it ends up that I'm the only one behind the car. So he goes to the U-turn, and of course, as he goes to get back on the highway, I hit my emergency lights on my car. I have an undercover car now, so my lights are hidden. So I hit the lights, I give a little quick chirp on a siren, and he pulls over. So I get out of my vehicle and, I take the badge out from underneath my shirt, because that's really the only identification I have, and I walk up to the car and, I tell him, we have a report of a stolen vehicle that matches the description of his car. I obviously, this car's not stolen. Can I see your driver's license, right? A story just enough to, you know, justify him giving me the driver's license and not enough to spook him, right? So he goes to hand me his driver's license with his left hand, right? And he reaches across, I'm sorry, his right hand. And he reaches across. Now I go to grab it. And as I go to grab it, he pulls his hand in, right? And now I make, maybe because it's Federal Friday, right? I make this rookie mistake, right? And I reach into the car to grab the license. Now, as I reach in, I notice that his foot is on the brake and the car is in drive, right? So I look at him and he looks at me. And at that moment, he hooks my arm with his left arm, okay? And then he punches the gas. So now he's heading into the highway and I'm hooked on a car. So I'm trying to run to keep up, but I know that I can't. I can't keep up with the car. So I could probably rip my arm free, but then I'm going to fall and get run over by his back tires. So I dive into the car, right? So now I'm kind of on his lap looking at him with my legs dangling out the car. And I look and I can see that he's going towards, he's in the middle lane now, but he's going into the fast lane and he's going to crush me against the divider and just keep going, right? So, I hear in my head like a roar. It's so loud, I just hear like that inner voice, that right. Shoot him now, bang, right. And next thing I know, I'm just tumbling down the highway, right. And so when these things happen, like time gets warped, right, in your mind. I guess obviously it's not. So I'm tumbling down the highway, and I think to myself like, man, am I ever going to stop? Right? Because I was just going. And then I finally come to a stop and I'm on all fours, and I still have my weapon in my hand. And I look up and there's a tractor trailer bearing down on me. Right? Now, I like, again, like time gets that warp time, right? And I have enough time to think like what is this, a cartoon? Like, is a piano going to fall out of the sky, right? And hit me in the head, I, it's so close. I don't even have time to move. So with this, I get yanked out of the way, right? I mean, I just like the truck like barely misses my foot as I get yanked, And my partner had shown up at like the moment that the suspect started taking me down the highway, right? So, he heard the shot. He didn't know if I got shot or if I, had fired my weapon. He had no idea. So he dragged me to the shoulder and was like, are you all right, man? And I'm like, yeah, go get him. I said something else, but you get the idea, right? So I'm really mad. I'm mad at myself. I don't understand how he's still going, right? So he takes off. He jumps in his truck and takes off. So I get up and I had a sleeveless T-shirt on. So I'm all bloodied up, road rash, and I got a concussion, and I'm really, pissed off at this point. So I start to walk towards my vehicle, which is probably about 50 yards up the highway, and I'm not aware of my surroundings really, right? Because I'm in that zone now, and other members of our squad had shown up and blocked traffic because it's a crime scene now. And I'm unaware of all of this. So I'm just walking up the highway trying to get to my vehicle. And I don't really realize what I look like. So I remember getting close to my vehicle, and I said something, you know, I'm gonna kill that. You could add any word you want in there. And I stopped and I looked to my right, and there's a vehicle parked right next to me, not parked, but and I realized that all the cars are at a dead stop. And inside the car is like a typical family, father, mother, two kids in the back seat. And the mother is looking at me with this look of horror on her face, right? Like she's like, and then I realized, man, it hits me like, whoa. Um, she's terrified of me because she sees like this bald lunatic walking up the highway, bleeding, talking to himself with a gun in his hand, right? So I mean, it snaps me back to reality. I holster my weapon and I jump in my car and I take off. I try to get on a pursuit, to help my partner, right? Because I'm not thinking clearly. And so I go upper level of the bridge, but they had gone lower level. So I never caught up with them. But what had happened, my partner ended up ramming the car because he wouldn't stop right before the toll booth. And another member of the group had shown up, and they're ordering him out of the car at gunpoint. But they can't see in the car because I didn't see this, but they told me there's all the blood. There's so much blood on the windows that they can't see in, right? So they're like, get out of the car, get out of the car. And the car door opens and then closes, right? Opens and then closes. And so they're like, they don't know what this guy's doing. They're about to start shooting on the car again. And then finally the door opens and he slumps out, right? What it was that he had lost so much blood, he couldn't undo his seatbelt, right? So when he slumps out, like he's bleeding. So they quickly, do first aid and everything. They stop the bleeding, the paramedics come and they take him to the hospital. And, I end up getting a call from my chief, like, where are you? And I'm like, again, that snaps me back to reality because I'm not hearing all the radio chatter, because again, I have a concussion and I'm in that zone. So he's like, hey, come back. So I make my way back, cross the traffic, on the bridge and everything. So I finally get back and, I hand my weapon over to my chief and, he orders my sergeant to take me and my partner to the hospital. So we go to the hospital and, I end up getting released that night, but I have a lot of injuries, but it's nothing that the emergency room is going to take care of then, right? So they clean me up and send me on my way. And so I ended up having 11 surgeries, and it was 6 right shoulder rotator cuff operations, and then on a 7th one they replaced it, and then I had 2 lower spine surgeries. They had to put cages in. I had a wrist surgery, and my deltoid muscle snapped and ended up down by my elbow. So they had to pull everything up and sew it back together. So they ended up medically retiring me. They gave me, 2 medals, 2 of the highest medals in law enforcement, the Legion of Honor, and the Combat Cross. And then they kind of said, all right, see you. And, and that's a kind of like, I don't have no complaints about my department. They were, everything was, they were good. They did everything that they were supposed to do. And they supported me. The suspect, he lived. He gave a statement admitting to trying to crush me against the divider. And he was being held on $2 million bail, attempted murder of a police officer. And then he got a lawyer and, then the story changed. He thought I was carjacking him, but they found his driver's license on the highway. So then it was, I walked up to the car and shot him. But the end result was that he sued everybody. And, the DEA panicked and they cut him a deal behind my back and they gave him lifetime probation, even though he's from Virginia and nobody's going to monitor him. But look at what, to me, it wasn't personal. He was doing his thing. I was doing mine, whatever, but so me being retired though, I started to lose touch with like my friends, because I would show up and, I'm not really part of what they're doing now. I'm not a participant. I'm a spectator, right? And I started to feel out of place, because I was getting operated on like every 4 to 6 months, right? So, you know, I couldn't really get anything going, and I started to put on weight, and I started to get depressed, right? And I was like losing myself in like a haze of like self pity and pain pills, like it's horrible, man, but you don't realize you're in that, you know. You make excuses for yourself, right? Oh, everybody my age looks like this, or I'm injured, what do you expect? Just nonsense. I didn't even believe it when I was saying it. So I ended up putting on 100 pounds, and it was pretty bad. I mean, that's a lot of weight for me. So one day I'm sitting there and I'm looking at a picture of my niece's high school graduation. And there's a picture of me and my family, right? And I'm staring at this picture because I cannot see myself in that person standing next to my wife, right? I don't recognize myself. And that it felt like getting hit right in the chest with a sledgehammer, man. Like that was like, like really, it was like kapow, right? And again, but that's something that like it woke me up though, where like I said, no, no way, man, I can't do this. So, I went on like this mission to get my life back, really, and it took me about 2.5 to 3 years. I ended up losing weight, getting back in shape. I went from 265 down to 175, and I was starting to feel pretty good. I cut down on the pain pills to almost nothing, and I couldn't go back to work. It doesn't work that way, and but the whole time though, I was missing something. You know what I mean? Like I had that like a hole in my heart. Um, so I was trying to figure out how am I going to replace this? And I remember when I got out of Marine Corps boot camp, I did a skydive with a friend of mine. We went down and it was a little Cessna. They took you up to like 3,000 feet, and you put your foot on a step and you held the strut, and you let go, and it was a static line, and it pulled the chute out for you. It was awesome. It was the greatest thing I ever did. I was just I loved it, and I said back then I was going to get my license, but I never did. Life happened, you got busy, whatever, and but this time I said, you know what, I'm going to get my skydive license. So I did. I went, and it was 2019. I ended up getting my skydive license at the end of the Northeast jumping season. It was the end of October. And I ended the season with 27 jumps, two over, it took 25 jumps to get your license. So 2020 rolled around, and me and a jump buddy, he's an iron worker from New York City. He, the whole year, we just went up and down the East Coast skydiving, and I ended up doing over like 300 jumps. So, I was trying to reach 500 jumps so I could get my tandem license. And, so you need 500 jumps and 3 years experience. So I was just banging them out, and everything was great. I loved it. It filled that hole, the camaraderie, right? The equipment, the training, and of course, like the adrenaline, right? It was perfect. Then 2021 came around, and I had started wingsuiting. So, I don't know if your audiences know, wingsuiting is like wearing that squirrel suit, where you can fly. So a lot of guys jump off of mountains or cliffs, you can do it out of a plane. A lot of guys do it out of planes. So I ended up taking the course and doing like, my 2 supervised jumps, and I did 2 unsupervised jumps. So this was going to be like my 5th wingsuit jump, right? So I headed down to North Carolina. There's a skydiving center right outside of Fort Bragg, and so I got there like on a Monday, and I was like the only fun jumper there. And so and a fun jumper is just a licensed skydiver, that's not a military or an instructor or a student, right? So I was the only fun jumper there, and there's no way they would put a plane up just for me, So, I mean, I didn't really care. It was my first time there, so it was still pretty cool. You had to check out the place and whatever. So I grabbed my gear and I walked into this hangar that I thought was like for fun jumpers, right? And I walked in, I put my gear down, and there's a bunch of guys in there, and they're all looking at me, and I ended up starting to talking to them, and these guys were in the Army, stationed in Fort Bragg, and you know, they didn't tell me what they did. I got a pretty good idea, but um, I told them I was a retired detective. I told them my story, and I was in the Marine Corps. So they said, hey, you want to hitch a ride on our plane? And I was like, well, yeah, that'd be great. So I, I I did 6 jumps with them that day, and I practiced my wingsuit pattern, you know, because I was gonna wingsuit the next day. So it was a great day. Everything went perfect, and it was just a great day. So I show up the next day, and I have that. From the second I got there, I had that feeling, like something was off, and I couldn't figure out what it was, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get rid of it, and it was growing in intensity, and so I put my wingsuit on anyway, and the wingsuit I had was a rental wingsuit, and it wasn't the suit that I had been jumping. I had to turn that one in because they needed it for a beginner student. So the only one they had was the next skill level up. So I took it, and I put it on, and it didn't fit right though. It was too tight in the shoulders and the arms, and it was too short. Because it kind of crunched down a little bit. But I put it on anyway, and I got on a plane, and so I got on first because I was getting out last, and I took the ride up to altitude. It's about 15 minutes, and about 14,000 feet. It's like 2.5 miles. And but man, the feeling though was like it was getting intense, like and again that voice that we hear, right? That inner voice, um, some people call it like your training, right? Other people call it the universe, you know. Uh, I call it God, right? It doesn't matter what you call it, you just can't ignore it, But of course I did, right? So because you know, I think it was like my pride, right, or arrogance, maybe, right? Because I was at the jump number I had, right? It was I. This was going to be jump 338, right? So I had enough jumps to where I had this false sense of invincibility, I guess, right? Uh, I had that attitude of, whatever. I got to land somewhere, right? So, and I have a reserve parachute, so whatever happens, if I'll just cut away and go to my reserve parachute, right? That's the attitude I had, right? Pretty stupid, but that's that right there, that jump number. That's that dangerous attitude, but so so I ignored it, right? And but that voice was saying to me, "Don't jump, ride the plane down," you know. And again, I don't hear voices. It's just that inner voice, Don't jump, ride the plane down. So whatever. I pushed it down deep, and I'm sitting in the back of the plane, and the light turns red, and the first jumper opens the door, and about a minute later, it turns green, and he gets to the door, does his thing, sets up, and he exits. So now every 8 seconds, either a jumper or a group of jumpers is exiting the plane. And as they do, I slide down the bench, right? Because I'm in my wingsuit now. So, I just slide down the bench, and I get to the end of the bench, and that's my last chance to like abort that jump. Of course, I don't abort it, and I get up, I get to the door, I check my airspace, I can see the airport. and I jump out, and I go right into my wingsuit pattern, right? Because when you wingsuit, you do a pattern, and you do the same pattern every time. In case you hit clouds or whatever, if you follow the pattern, you'll always end up close enough to the airport to make it back, you know? Um, so I go right into my pattern, and everything's going really well, Um, I, I mentioned that the suit didn't fit right and it was too short, right? So because it was too short, it was pushing me into a steeper angle. So I was going super fast now, and um, plus with the higher skill level suit, that added to my speed also. So, but I had it under control, right? Everything was under control, and I'm just doing my thing, and I'm saying, "Wow, this is great," I got this, I'm good. So the audible altimeter in my helmet I had set for 6,500 feet, which is pretty high. I wanted enough time to be able to slow down and pull my parachute, right? So it starts to beep, beep beep beep, and so I start to slow down, and I reach back and I pull my parachute. And the second I do it, I think to myself, "You didn't slow down enough." And as soon as I get that thought out of my, like, I hear pow, and that's my parachute hits the wind and it opens instantly. Okay. Um, and my head snaps back and I hear this crunch, and the crunch is my neck breaking. Okay. So, um, it was like somebody turned the switch off then. And I felt this electrical charge go down from my neck all the way down my body to my toes. And as it went down, my body went limp, and I couldn't move. I could move my head, but and a little bit of my left hand. And I was like, I thought to myself, like, no way did this just happen. So I said, I thought, you know what, just give it a few seconds. The feeling and the movement, it'll come back, right? I give it like 10, 15 seconds, and it doesn't come back. And which means I can't reach up to get my toggles, so I can't steer or slow down, right? So I'm really screwed. And at that's the moment though, like that is the moment right there that I just knew, that I was gonna die. I'm done. I'm gonna die. And and I had like the next 5 minutes to think about it. And so I'm at 5,000 feet, and like I'm in North Carolina, and all I see is trees, right? So, at first, I just kind of accepted my fate because I thought there's nothing I can do, you know. Um, and then they say like your life flashes before your eyes, and that's true, right? I thought about my family, right? My wife, my kids, my dogs, right? And I felt like a speck of dust floating around, um, and what I thought about was like outside my little sphere of influence, right, of friends and family, nothing's going to change, right? The only thing is going to be I'm just not going to be here anymore. And it's almost as if I was never here at all, really. And it makes you, it's very humbling. It's a really humbling experience, right? So, um, you know, all your plans, right? Everything is just like, you feel really insignificant. Everything is like none of that matters anymore, but all this like happens like fast though. Um, you know, because I don't know how to explain it, but like my feeling at that point was like sad, right? Like I had this like deep sadness for everything I was gonna miss, right? But then like that little fire, like it's, I don't know what it's called. I call it the fire of your soul, right? It's like a little flame ignites, right? It's like a little birthday candle, right? Deep down inside, man, in your soul, right? And as that tiny little flame like ignites, sadness turns to anger, right? And then as it grows, anger turns to fury, right? And I said to myself, you know what? I'm gonna die. I know that, but I'm gonna die fighting. Okay? I'm gonna die like a warrior with my sword in my hand, and you know, I'm not just gonna, take one glorious last ride off into the sunset, until I run out of altitude. No way. So I sat and I thought, all right, well, what can I do, right? I can't move, so what can I do? So my brain started to work again normally, and I realized that I had planned my canopy opening in a spot where the wind would be at my back. So, and it would push me towards the airport. Okay. And the reason for that was in case I deployed my parachute and it was bad, right? Say I had a line twisted, say it was all twisted up and it wasn't working. I'd have to cut it away and then go to my reserve. But at least the winds would float my parachute towards the airport. And this way I wouldn't be out of parachute, and like $3,000, they're expensive. So that's why I plan where, I always do that. That's wherever I open, I make sure the winds are going to be pushing towards the airport. So I knew that they would push me towards the airport, right? But if I did nothing, if I just did nothing, um, I would be too high and I would just float past the airport and end up in the trees, you know? So I had to burn off the altitude. So, I had recently, maybe 50 jumps earlier, learned how to steer my canopy using my body weight. So it works better on a small canopy, and if you could move. But I figured, it's something I could try it, and I was able to do these wide 360-degree turns. And it seemed to be working. I was burning off the altitude and staying within the, close enough to the airport where I figured that, somebody would see me at least, because the whole thing was I knew I was going to die. And I was just trying to get close to the airport so they could find my body because I had this like terrible fear of getting hung up in a tree alive and nobody being able to find me, and then, the squirrels and the birds would peck at me, get inside my suit, like and eat me alive, right? It probably sounds ridiculous, but that's what was going on in my mind. But the other thing too, though, was as I'm doing my turns, that inner voice was going in my head again. And, this time, I call it the bad voice this time because it was telling me like, ditch it, ditch it into the trees and get it over with because, even if you live, you're still paralyzed and that's not living, and your wife and family, they don't deserve that. Right. And to be honest with you, in that situation, that was not a bad idea because I did not want, live paralyzed. There's no way. Or, I mean, I just the thought of being a quadriplegic, I couldn't even fathom that. But I figured the crash landing was going to kill me anyway. So what would be the point of rushing it? So, because I broke my neck and it was the equivalent of hanging myself a mile high in the sky, and I probably shouldn't have even survived that, but I did. And so my canopy flies at like 27 to 30 miles an hour, right? And you got to figure maybe a 5 to 10 mile an hour wind at my back. So I was probably going to hit the ground at like between 30 and 40 miles an hour with a broken neck. You know what I mean? So the chances of surviving that are so slim, man. There's no way. So, So my goal was just to get close enough to the airport so they could find me, And I was making my turns and I was just trying to stay disciplined, And my GoPro was going and I didn't say a word, I was just so in the zone of just trying to get back to the airport. So, I'm doing my thing and my altimeter is set to be, for a landing pattern. So mine's set for 1200, 600, 300. So when it beeps at 1200, I'm crossing the runway already, and I'm heading straight for the trees. So I'm like, damn, you know what? Definitely, he's not going for any landing accuracy awards here. So I just keep sticking to the plan, and 600 feet, it beeps twice, and now the ground it's getting bigger now. Everything's getting bigger, and it's the ground's coming. I can't stop it. So it is really what it is. But I catch this breeze, and it turns me like 120-degree turn, and I can get a pretty good idea now where I'm going to land. But first of all, that's weird because I got a wind that's actually turning me into the wind. And that's very rare, unless you have a tornado, I think. So, but I didn't care, man, because it was working, and so I got a good idea where I'm going to land, and it's in somebody's backyard, directly across the street from the Skydive Center. And but there's a chain link fence, right? And also there's an above ground pool, right? And if I hit the pool, I'm going to drown. And I can't raise my legs to avoid the fence. So, with this, my helmet, my altimeter beeps for the 300, altitude. And now I know that I'm dead in like 30 seconds. And because, that's what it takes from 300 feet, 25 to 30 seconds. So, you ever hear that saying, like, there's no atheists in a foxhole, right? Well, I really understand what that means now, And of course, I pray to God because I don't, when you're about to die in 30 seconds, I don't care who you are or what you believe in. You're going to pray to something, whatever that is, and that's what I did. And I hit the fence, man. Boom, right below my knees, right? And it flips me over and I smack it to the ground, right? And so my helmet I have this really dark visor. And you can see it in the picture above me. It's really dark. But now my face is in the ground, right? And so now it's really dark. And man, everything's so silent, right? And I sit there and it's funny, but I think to myself, am I dead? Right? Because I mean, I really don't know at this point, and I'm like, am I dead? So I try to move and I can't move, So I'm like, oh man, I'm alive, and I'm in big trouble, man, because I did not want to survive this because I can't even imagine living as a quadriplegic. And the way I feel like right now is like my body's a coffin, right? And I'm locked inside it. I can't get out. And I feel like I'm really small inside my own body. Almost like I'm a prisoner in my body, right? And it's, man, there's there's things worse than death. And I think that's probably one of them. And so with this, though, as this is all going on, the military guys that I had jumped the day before with, they were on the plane also. And they got out early. So they landed quickly. And they knew exactly where I was supposed to be, because the winds were the same as the day before. So when they looked up and they saw where I was, they knew something was up. So they grabbed some binoculars, they looked up, and they saw my arms dangling. And they knew I was in trouble. So they jumped in a truck, with a couple staff members from the drop zone, and they followed me. So they were there. Within a minute, they were on me. And these guys were all business then at this point, and they were highly trained, and they got me stable, uh, and they got me across the street to where the helicopter was coming to pick me up, so, and I was really calm at this point because I realized that, I had just had a life-changing event. There's nothing I can do about it. And I was like, without, I had like no hope, man. You know what I mean? Like I was done in my mind. And, you know, that's a, that's a crappy place to be, you know. And as they're like strapping me, into the, whatever it was I was in that they were going to put into the helicopter, right? Um, I said to the flight paramedic, like, hey, I said it jokingly, but I was more serious than joking. I said, hey, when we get to altitude, can you throw me out the door, he got mad, he's like, not on my watch. So, but, you can look at it from my point of view. I feel like a sack of meat, man. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point? Like, so I land at the hospital and, I could see, because I can move my head, like there's like 20 doctors, nurses, technicians, we're all lined up, right? And I actually think like, you know, wow, I wonder what happened. Like something really bad must have happened, maybe an accident on the highway or something, you know, because I just can't imagine they're all there for me, and so they get me off the helicopter and they're all on me, they're cutting everything off me and putting IVs and they got like the portable X-ray machine and they're X-raying me and there's a nurse taking my information, she's asking me questions and I said to her like, hey, did something bad happen? Like, uh, what happened? And she smiled and she looked at me. She's like, you happened, she yells at me, right? So, and I kind of knew like, I was like, these people really cared, man. You know what I mean? Like you could tell, like they really, you know, um, they, I was in good hands, but well, I just couldn't figure out why though, because in my mind, like I'm finished. What's the point? Really? Like seriously, like just what are we doing here? So they X-rayed me like 4 or 5 times, right? They checked every inch of my body, and I didn't even have a scratch on me, not a scratch, no broken bones, nothing except for my neck. That was the only thing, So 5 and 6, um, just blew out, with the impact, and so they got me into the ICU unit, right? And so like this is where it gets like deep and dark, because I'm sitting in there and, I'm highly medicated now too. I don't know what they gave me, but it was something strong. And so, but like I felt this like blanket, heavy blanket of like doom, like just laying on me, like, and it was almost like smothered. It was like, it was hard to breathe, because it was so like just dark, man, and just suffocating, and I couldn't see a way out of this, and like there was no happy ending to this, right? And your mind, it can be like it can launch you into greatness, right? But it can also drag you down, like to like a pit of hell, man, you know, and that's where mine was taking me, right? And you know, I just couldn't see a way out, and I just knew that I couldn't. There's no way I could live as a quadriplegic, and so again, not taking control of my own mind and it letting it run off, right? You know, I'm not embarrassed to talk about it only because it might help somebody, you know. But I'm sitting here and I'm thinking I got to find a way to kill myself, right? Because I just can't do this. And but the thing is, like, I can't move, so how can I? How am I going to do it, right? The nurse is not going to come in. She's not going to OD me, right? That's not going to happen. I know that. And so again, this is going to sound ridiculous, but to me, wasn't ridiculous at the time. I remember the movie that I had seen years earlier, Silence of the Lambs, right? And in that movie, Hannibal Lecter, he convinced the guy in his cell next to him to swallow his tongue and kill himself. Okay. So I thought to myself, I can move my tongue. I can do that, you know? And so I sat there like for the next half hour trying to swallow my tongue, right? And, I mean, really trying to swallow my tongue. After about a half hour, I gave up and I couldn't do it. I don't even know. It's probably not even possible, I mean, it's that Hollywood magic, um, but again, my mind is in that place. So I'm like, okay, when I get out of here, I'll get a motorized wheelchair and I'll drive it in front of like a bus or a train, right? That's what I'm going to do. So, that's where your mind will go, right? If you let it. And I'm going to jump ahead right now and I'm going to say, right, because like the moral of the story, the biggest takeaway from my story is, and one of the major reasons why I'm even telling my story is because we never get to know how our story ends, right? We don't know the ending, right? Imagine how boring life would be if we knew what the ending was, right? What's the point? You know what I mean? Like it'd be horrible. But so we never get to know the ending of the story. So we can't give up. We have to fight until the lights go out, right? And that's what I said. We got to fight till the lights go out. And so I'll keep going, but like I just had to get that in here because that's so important. I didn't want to forget that. So with this, the doctor comes in and he says, "Okay, look, you broke your neck. We know that." And he says, "From the X-ray, it looks like your discs 5 and 6 they crumble. They like kind of just." And he says that's a good thing because if they stayed intact, they probably would have severed your spinal cord. He said, "I don't know if your spinal cord is severed. I can't see that on the X-ray." He says, "So I'm going to send you in for an MRI, and then you're going right into surgery." And that's what happened. Then I woke next, I blink and I'm back in ICU, with that feeling of dread. And again, but the doctor comes in and he says, "Okay, look, my surgery was a success. Your discs, they did crumble. Your spinal cord did not sever." He said, "but it's damaged and it's, everything's swollen and it's bruised. So," he says, "I can't tell you what your recovery is going to look like." He says, "Sometimes people walk out of this." He said, "Most don't. But it's not up to me." He says, "It's all luck." That's what he said. He said, "We're going to keep you in the ICU until we get everything under control, and then we'll go from there." So, okay. So with that, he leaves. 4 days go by, and, every waking minute, I'm trying to move something, in my mind. I'm just going over every up and down my body trying to move something. And on the fourth day, I feel like my big toe is moving, right? So I call in the nurse, and I say, "Hey, I think I'm moving my right big toe." So she looks and she says, "I can't see it." So she rips off my sock and she grabs my toe. And my movement is so slight but she can feel it, right? So she runs off to get the doctor. The doctor comes in, he grabs my toe, and he doesn't say anything, but he smiles like from ear to ear, right? He didn't have to say anything, because I honestly, I probably wouldn't have hurt him anyway, because that's all I needed to see, right? And then the next 2 days, I get my other big toe and then a finger and then another finger, right? So, I'm pretty excited at this point. I don't have any hope yet, but it's close, right? So then the doctor comes in and he's like, "All right, look, everything I did was a success. You know, you're going to therapy. You're going to go up to a room, then we're going to get you a bed in therapy." And, he says, "But I can't tell you what your recovery is going to look like." He said, But if you stay positive and work hard, it's all up to you. He said, okay, you know. And I started to think about it, like, and I started to think about everything that went wrong, and then was countered by something that went right, and so I started to get a little bit of hope because, like, there's no way all these things could be a coincidence, and so with that little spark of hope, like, um, people do great things, have done great things with just a little bit of hope because it goes a long way, So, so from that moment on, like, I was like, you know what? I'm walking out of this hospital. I'm going to walk out of here, even with my wife. Like, my wife, she's a teacher. And my kids were still in high school at the time. So there's no way that she would be able to come down to North Carolina to take care of me, because I live in upstate New York. So, but I told her, no, I'm good. I'm going to walk out of here. I'm going to walk out of here. And I was positive, and I got the therapy, and they were awesome, But they taught me how to live again. But the thing they taught me, though, was the only thing holding me back was my mind, And if I could get control of my mind, then I could do anything, So I just, I had to learn how to read. I had to learn how to do everything again, everything, because I lost the connection from my neck, from all the muscles, all the way down. So, like, not only learning how to walk, right? People, and it doesn't happen like that, right? It's not like you wake up one day and, oh, hey, I can walk now and everything, I'm back to normal. No, it doesn't work like that. Everything is so small, man. It's one small victory at a time, right? And, you have your ups and your downs, right? And, I don't want to paint this picture as if it was just, hey, everything was great. But I was doing really good and I was making some good progress, And then one day I come into my, they bring me back to my room for lunch, right? And I ask them to call my wife, and because they still can't do my, fingers or anything, move my, to make a phone call. So my wife gets on the phone and she's upset. I can tell she's been crying. So I asked her what's wrong, and she told me that one of my dogs walked in the room. She was teaching from home because it was during COVID, right? So she just dismissed her class, and one of my dogs walked in the room and dropped dead, just died, right? And man, it just wiped me out. Like, it just took all the wind out of my sails. I had to get off the phone. I felt like such a loser, being stuck in that hospital in that damn chair, and like, it just. Again, the mind. I lost control of my mind, right? So where does it go? It goes right back to like that place, right? And I'm sitting in my wheelchair, I'm staring at the wall, and I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. I'm going to tell my wife, put me in a nursing home, close the door, make believe I'm dead, because I'm not doing this no more. I just can't do it. But I started to think about, everything that happened, but what I was mostly thinking about was when I was a drill instructor in the police academy. Because you got to understand, like, so when you're paralyzed and you can't move and you're stuck, like in a situation like that, your only escape is in your mind, right? So I would go to places, in my mind where I was my strongest and in most control, right? Because now I'm my weakest that I have no control, right? So my mind went back to when I was a drill instructor in a police academy. And my job was to teach the recruits, to never give up, right? Just to fight no matter what, to reach down really deep inside of them and just get that will to fight. And no matter what happens, just don't give up. So, and again, like, that's not easy to do. I had to bring them to the point where I was really like that, where they had no more hope and they just had to get mad and they had to fight. So it reminded me who I was, though, right? It reminded me who I was and who I was fighting for. So I decided that I'm going back to therapy, and I'm going to tell the therapist, I want more pain, I want more suffering, because the quicker I take the pain and the suffering, I can get out of that hospital. I can go home, but I can go home on my feet and not in that chair, because that chair, it sucks you in, man. Like you feel like you're being sucked into it. So, and that's what I did. And they were great. They gave me everything I wanted. And, after 2 months of like absolute hell, I walked out of that hospital, and it wasn't pretty. And I was in no way done. It was just like the beginning, really, because, the world is a lot bigger and a lot faster than the hospital. So, but you know what? I'm out of the hospital now, and every day I would improve a little bit, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And I got to the point where I said to myself, you know what? I'm going back to the skydive center near my house because these people were my friends, supposedly. They didn't really receive me very well, like it was like, here I am, I'm trying to, I know it's a little crazy because I'm trying to skydive, right? But you got to understand, I didn't want this accident to define me, right? I didn't want to be that guy who, look, that's the guy who got hurt. That's why he limps or whatever, skydiving. It's like I had to finish what I started, right? And plus, I watched veterans missing arms and legs. They jump, right? They modify their gear and they train, And the thing too, though, was it was very important to me, not because I was looking for attention or I wanted to be, look at me, I can skydive. It had nothing to do with that. It was because I knew I have these limitations, whether it be my limb or my hand, whatever the hell it was, whatever. And I was okay with that, but I didn't want to like have an excuse to feel sorry for myself and be a victim, right? So, it's like if I'm laying in bed and I wake up and like everything hurts, right? And I say, oh, I'm just going to stay in bed today. Nobody would fault me, right? But if I was able to skydive, I couldn't say that. I'd have to be like, you know what? What are you, crazy? You can skydive. Get the hell out of bed. Get dressed and go get it. Don't be a victim and stop feeling sorry for yourself, So that was my thinking, okay? But it wasn't, no, nobody else thought like that, Everybody was like, what are you, crazy? No way. We're not going to help you. I asked for them to take me on a tandem, and they're like, absolutely not. There's no friggin' way, get it out of your head. So I called my friend who's the manager of Skydive Shenandoah in Virginia, okay, New Market, Virginia. And she's a really good friend of mine. She's a retired state trooper. She was a sergeant in the Marine Corps. We're a lot in common, right? And she's a rigger also, So, I called her up and, I kind of unloaded, not on her, but, I had that moment of feeling sorry for myself where, yeah, no one will help me. And, I don't know where my gear is, So she told me she had my gear. My wife had given it to her. And, it was like a big secret. Nobody wanted me to have my gear. But she was fixing it. She needed more time. But she told me, though, if I got a doctor's note and went down to Virginia, she would take me on a jump. And I was like, whoa. Oh, great. That's awesome, Called my doctor, the one who did the neck surgery in North Carolina. He was all for it. He was awesome. What a great guy, And I had that note within an hour, And so she said, 3 weeks, come down. I didn't tell anybody, And, because somebody would have stepped in and pulled the plug on the jump, the whole bit. You know what I mean? And to her credit, though, you know, well, number one, she now owns the place. She's not the manager anymore. She bought it, so she's now the owner. And at the time, she was the United States Parachute Association Northeastern Regional Safety Director. That's a big title, but so she had a lot riding on that. You know, like if something happened on that jump, man, it was her She was putting her reputation on the line. You know, and you know that's huge. You know, and I just she should be recognized for it. She's fantastic. Her name's Shauna Finley, and you know, and to this day I go down to Virginia and skydive with her. But so I went there and I was nervous because I figured, man, she's not going to do it. No way. And so I show up and she's going to do it. You know, I was like, whoa, you know, I still can't even tie my shoes, though. I want you to understand, like, I have elastic shoelaces on my sneakers, you know, and I can't hold a fork right. I still don't know how to hold a fork. I hold it like a shovel, you know, and so I'm still in pretty bad shape. Like I don't have a lot of. I still can't button my shirts or my pants, you know. So there's a lot going on still, and you know, but I knew though I could skydive though because I've done that. I did that jump about 1,000 times in my mind, laying in that hospital bed. Right, I went over every single. I mean, you can imagine, like you know. So I mean, I was ready, you know. So she told me that, you know, look, if you do anything unsafe or I don't think you're ready, I'm going to ground you for 6 months. I was like, fine, because I knew she'd be fair, right? No agenda, you know. That's all I just wanted a shot, you know. I didn't want anybody to do anything. Like, just give me a shot, you know. And so we got on a plane, and it was like it was a little Cessna, and we got up to, you know, about 2 miles. She gave me the thumbs up, and you know, she opened the door, and I swung my legs out, and I'm just sitting there, and you know, at that moment, I kind of feel like my dog when he sticks his head out the window, right? Because I mean, just letting the wind hit me, man, like it was. I can't explain to you what that was like, but you know, it was amazing, you know, and I gave her the thumbs up, and I just leaned forward, and I fell out of the plane on purpose, though, but, you know, just let myself fall out. And the wind hits me and it puts me in a barrel roll and then a flip, you know, like I'm just, you know, because everything's changed for me. You know, I lost 35 pounds in the hospital, you know, so everything is different, you know, but I get stable, I get my position, you know, and I turn right, you know, and I turn left. I don't see Sean. I don't know where she is, you know, and she's above me though, you know. So she comes down and we link up and man, we're both smiling because this is a big deal, you know, for me anyway. I mean, for me, it's like this is everything, you know. And I give her like, you know, a signal like, hey, I'm getting ready to deploy my parachute, you know. And she flies around to my side, you know, just in case I can't, you know, because of my feeling of my hands, you know. So she's there just so she can pull my parachute if I can't do it. But you know, I pull my parachute and boom, there it is. And I got twisted lines, right? Like, really, you know. So I reach up as far as I can, and it's not very far. So I have to kick my way out of it. I scissor kick it, and then pop out. And now I'm at 4,000 feet. I got a good canopy above me. There's nobody else in the air. You know, Shauna's already gone. She's probably landed already at this point. And you know, I put my leg straps down, which allows me to sit in my harness like a chair, you know, and I just sit there and I take it all in, man. And like, I can't explain like how grateful like I feel, right? You know, that I can walk, right? Let alone skydive, forget about it. You know what I mean? Like, this is an amazing thing for me. Like, I can't really process it totally, you know? Then I realize, I think about 5 months and 12 days earlier, I was laying in somebody's backyard wishing I were dead, right? So then at that moment, I'm like, you know what? It just comes out of me. I yell, you know, I'm alive, and because at that moment, I was more alive than I've ever been, you know, and so it's just an amazing feeling. I wish I could box that up and give it to people, right? Because it would be like just the most incredible gift anybody ever got. And you know, so I end up I land, and I don't stand my landing up. I'm just playing it safe, so I slide it in, and Sean is there, and like it's a big deal, and I jump again that day, and I stand my landing up, and that was finality to me, man. It was like I completed like my mission, like my drive home was like I drove home in silence, 6 hours, just in my head the whole way, just trying to savor that feeling, right? Just trying to. I don't want to lose that feeling, And man, but the accident really changed me, though. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know why or how. It's not like I got a lightning bolt from God or anything like that. But everything's different for me now. You know what I mean? Because, when I was in the hospital and the things that I dreamed about were not like, what you would think, right? I dreamed about putting on my socks, brushing my teeth. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the little things, Uh, because we take the little things we do every day for granted. We don't even think about it, And, because like, who cares, right? But if you lose those things, you will care, man. Like, um, so like now for me, like every little thing is like a magical gift. You know what I'm saying? Like tying my shoes is like, oh man, look at that. It's put my feet on the ground is like the biggest thing. So it's like every day is it's like a new, like it's like Groundhog Day every day. I put my feet on the ground. I'm like, oh yeah, like so, and it's like, I know we all think we're here for some grand purpose, um, and we take those little things for granted, I'm starting to believe now that we're here, um, you know, mostly for the little things, right? Like the little things, like saying hello to a stranger on the street, right? Um, because you don't know, like that person could be at their wits' end, about to walk around a corner and blow their brains out. You have no idea. But you know what? You may say hello to that person, and it may change their mind, right? Like, so I believe that. Like every time we interact with somebody, it changes them. And it could be for the good or it could be for the bad, right? We could interact with people and cause damage, right? So I walk around now like I'm good to everybody, even people that don't deserve it. You know what I'm saying? Because I look at it this way: um, maybe they're having a bad day, um, maybe they're just miserable, terrible people. I don't know, but you know what? If that's the case, and I'm being nice to them, I get extra points for that. You know what I mean? I know, but that's one way to look at it, I guess. But I just think though that um, it's those things that matter the most. And and like I'll never quit for anything, and I don't, and that's that. I, I want to tell everybody that, like just keep fighting, because the only way we lose is if we quit. There's only two things that we can do to give us a guaranteed outcome, and that's quit or never try. Right? Then you're guaranteed to fail. It's 100%. You're going to fail. That's it. We don't know. So if you fail, you get up, you keep going, and that's kind of my thing on you know, there's a whole, it's not not religious, but there's a whole spiritual factor to my whole situation too, though. You know what I mean? Like I'm different, man, like, um, and I think what we do matters, I do,
It's that perspective shift that just taking the little things for granted that even deep down, I would say most people know that we do that, but we're not going to change. We're not going to, there's no way to change that unless you go through
Right.
something as significant as what you have been through.
Right. I mean, we can try, but obviously it's not the same, Like I tell my friends now, like, hey, just try it. Take an hour, and just everything you do, or just think about it, like I was in a hospital and I was becoming like institutionalized, and so a nurse walks in. It's like maybe after like 5 weeks, and she says, "Hey, you want a cup of coffee?" And I was kind of like taken back, like, coffee? I can have coffee? You know what I mean? She's like, "Of course you can. Why wouldn't you be able to?" I'm like, "Man, I'd love a cup of coffee, Like I had to drink it through a straw, right? But oh my man, I tell you what, like I was like, wow, made my whole day, right? Just that, again, it's something simple as like that, Like so now every time I have a cup of coffee, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't got to drink it out of a straw. So I just think like I know it's hard to change, because we get set in our patterns, you know. But I think if we try, just even trying is could be enough, At least we're trying, That means we're conscious of it, So, you know, uh, don't get me wrong. Like, I was no angel, like I've done my share, and I'm sure I'll do a lot, but at least now I'm aware that I think it matters, I think, I just think it does. And then I know I'm going to try anyway. And I make mistakes. I'm human too, right? And I'll catch myself, getting pissed off at something or whatever. But the thing is, though, when I catch myself, I can I can bring myself right back to that place of, you know, of knowing what matters, and that's the one thing that's changed me, um, because again, like we're all going to make mistakes and we're all going to, you know, but the ability now for me to control my own mind is that's huge, And I tell people too, like, hey, it's your choice. You know, yeah, it takes practice, but it's still your choice. You can wake up and decide to be happy, or you can wake up and decide to be nasty. But it's up to you. You know what I mean? Like we're all responsible for our own, actions and also to our own thoughts. And we can change our thoughts anytime we want. You know, we're having a horrible day. Stop dead in your tracks. Say, you know what? I'm having a great day now, and just believe that. And I know that sounds silly, but it actually works. So it works for me anyway. Um, so I think we could try at least. I know I'm gonna, because I tell you what, I it's better to have a good day than a bad day. You know what I mean? So it's a lot more fun to be happy than to be miserable. So
Even
that's where I'm going.
even from a different angle with sticking to doing what you say you're going to do, working out, sticking to that schedule, because your mind just tries to do everything it can to not push yourself to the next level. Even this morning, I was out going for a run, didn't want to do it, was miserable, hated it. My mind was trying to make up as many excuses as possible to, oh, I got to do this, I got to work on college, I have stuff to do, I got to go. No, you just got to anchor in, you got to have to lock in, persevere, push through, keep your promises to yourself, because that's very important. If you can't keep your own word, then deep down subconsciously you're going to know that, and then you're going to be more and more undisciplined, and that's going to only grow and mount and can continue to affect you negatively over time.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, honestly, just what you said is huge, because if we can't control our own what we say we're going to do for ourselves, right? Then then like you said, it's downhill from there. So like with me with skydiving, it was very important to do it, and I wasn't going to stop until I got it done. And it was a good thing that they hit the gear for me, because I would have tried without the right help. If nobody was going to help me, I was going to end up doing it the dangerous way. But I was going to do it one way or the other, you know, because it was that important to me. And and I'm just fortunate that I had a friend that saw how important it was. You know, even if it wasn't important to her, she knew it was important to me. You know, so she went out of her way to help me. But and again, my mind will do the same thing. Uh, with skydiving, right? There's a difference between what you said, like your mind, right, or that inner voice, right? I listen to my inner voice now, but I don't listen to my mind and the chatter that it goes. Like you said, making the excuse no matter what. Oh, you can't do this because whatever. I don't listen to that no more. I stick to what I'm going to do. I've done 108 jumps since my accident, and I'm going to keep going. I'm getting older, but I don't. That's just a number, man. I feel like I'm 20. Well, I don't feel. I think I'm 20. I think. I still have my whatever, like my limitation. I hate saying it, from the accident, but it's reality. I broke my neck, but so I got nerve damage and stuff. But you know what? I'm a little slower and I'm a little weaker, but I can still do every single thing that I could do before the accident. It just takes me longer. So, yeah, and I see a lot of people just give up. They just give up. They don't, if things get hard, there's an obstacle in their way, they stop. It's like, go around it, go over it, go under it. What are you talking about, And, you know, uh, and I don't know how old you are, but, just from what you said that, you know, you're on the right track. I mean, I'm 57 right now. So it's like people my age, they're in a box, right? They've allowed themselves to be put in that box. And what I noticed with me with skydiving, when I started skydiving, I was older. I was like 51, and everybody got mad at me. Everybody was like, what the hell's wrong with you? Because I dared to get out of the box, and everybody, was, I ignored them, because I'm like, you want to stay in the box, stay in the box. I don't want to stay in the box. So, and I won't get in the box now. They don't even matter now that I'm skydiving after my accident. Oh, didn't you learn your lesson? And when I got hurt, I had like, somebody say, what were you thinking? You got what you deserved. Really? I deserve that? Because why? Because, you know what I mean? Like, but that's the way people think, because they don't want to, if I dare to get out of the box, it makes them look at themselves, right? And they may not like what they see. So instead of changing, they want to attack, right? Because it's too hard for them to change themselves, But no way. I'm not listening to that, And I never have, and I'm never gonna, So, I told them, look, hey, if I can find a cannon, I'll let them shoot me out of it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just how I'm wired. You know what I mean? I know that's stupid, but it's that's just how I'm wired, right? Like I like that thrill, and I don't think I should stop because I'm 57 years old.
Yeah, misery loves company, and other people try to pull you down and keep you where they're at in their own life so they can subconsciously get that approval that they're doing what they should be doing, when deep down they're not listening to that calling they have, that inner voice that keeps telling them to go down the unconventional route, but they're too scared or whatever's holding them back, that now they try to keep other people down with them so they feel better about themselves.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Like, you ever hear a story about the crab, right? The crabs, where like if you put crabs in a bucket, right? And if one of them tries to climb out of the bucket, the other crabs will actually grab him and pull him down. That's exactly what people do. and it's funny, um, and that's what we have to avoid, because you know, uh, it's a shame. Like, you know, the people that are like that, they do what they do, and I'm not going to judge them. Like, 'cause that's one thing. The other thing too, like I won't judge. I don't judge anybody. That's not me. That's not my job. I don't really, I I was a cop for a long time. I'm not a cop anymore. And even then, it wasn't my job to judge anybody. My job was to do my job. So, but they're the ones that judge, and it's a shame because I think you're right. I think a lot of it is they're afraid to take the step, you know, because doing something new is scary, Of course it is. Like, um, until you take the third or fourth step, right? But you still got to take the step. You got to take that step. So, um, yeah, that's my story, man. and I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna try to see if people can listen a little bit and say, "Hey, take the step, man. Just try it.
Yeah, and what would you
Don't
say
quit."
to someone who is, they know that they're supposed to be going after their calling, pursuing their passion, and maybe they're in a small town and no one else is like them, and they're the only one that wants to go outside the box, and they hear this and they get that inspiration initially, but inspiration and motivation are fleeting. So how can they take the first step, to take the next step, and to keep doing one foot after the other, to keep working towards that?
So it's like, in my book, I wrote this. It's like, so when I looked at the task that was, so most people, including myself, right, when they see, for example, my situation, right, I had to go from being paralyzed completely to I'm walking out of this hospital, right? The task before you is massive, right? It's like, wow, and so I don't know if you ever heard about, like the saying, how do you eat an elephant, right? And the saying is like, one bite at a time, right? But it's deeper than that because I know I have to eat the elephant, right? So I got to take that first bite, and I know that that first bite is going to be the most horrible thing I've ever tasted in my life, right? But I have to eat it, right? So those first how many bites, whatever, they taste horrible, right? Then after a while, you know, I'll learn to, I'll tolerate eating the elephant, right? I don't like it, but it's not as horrible as it was when I started. Now I'll tolerate it, And then after tolerating it for a little while, you're like, you know what? The elephant's not that bad. I actually like eating the elephant, you know? So then you start to eat more, a little more. And then you're like, hey, you know what? I got to have the elephant, man. I love the way the elephant tastes, And then you're just like all in now. And now you're eating the elephant like you're. So that's the way, that's what I would tell them, man. Take that step. Don't listen to a word anybody says, you know? And yeah, it's horrible and it's scary and it's going to be that way and just suck it up because it's not going to kill you and you just keep going and then eventually you'll tolerate it and then and then after a little while everybody in town is going to be, man, I wish I would have taken that first step with him, because now you're so far ahead of them because you did the hard thing while they talked themselves out of it, and they still got to go down the road you did, you know but you're already past the disgusting and hard part, and they still have to take that step. So just go for it. That's it. Because it's rewarding. It really is. And I saw people in the hospital. Because the therapy place where I was at, the hospital, is specialized in spinal cord injuries, right? So there were people in therapy that were worse than me, like me, and little better than me, right? So we had a big mix, and you would see somebody walk in one day or not walk in, get rolled in, whatever, and there was something different about him, and just you could tell there's something different about this person. And what it was is that they had convinced themselves that it was hopeless and to quit, right? And there was nothing that you could say or do to have them change their mindset, because in their mind it was over. That's it. And you know what? They were stuck. They didn't improve anymore, right? So, you know, because you have to be careful of that too. So you have to just keep the faith, man. Just that's it. Keep the faith. You got to do it, because hope is fleeting, man. Like when my dog died, right? I lost all that hope. The only thing that kept me in the game was the faith. So that's it. And man, because I believe that if you just give it everything you have and don't quit and just put your head down and grind it out, that you will be rewarded somehow, some way. Eventually you will, it's like planting a seed, right? You're gonna reap the harvest one day. It may be far off, but it's still there. Or being in a tunnel, and you can't see the light, so you think there's no hope, right? But it's not that there's no hope. It's just that you're so far down the tunnel that you just can't see the hope. But if you just keep moving, eventually you see the light. So that's what I believe. I do. So,
And talk to me about the book. Where can we find it at?
so it's kind of everywhere. You can get it on my website, but it's actually cheaper if you go through Amazon, if you have Amazon Prime, because with the shipping, So, my website is gpacelli.com. And, it's there, it comes right from the publisher there. Or again, Amazon has it mostly. So, and, in my book is basically, it's a memoir, right? So it covers a period of time from when I was 18 to, pretty much my first recovering skydive, right? But it's not in that order, because like I said, like when you're totally, paralyzed, you can't move, or, the only escape is in your mind, right? So again, I would go back to my police days when I was the strongest, and so the book weaves in and out of, um, being in the hospital to police stories, and then, to where it all started when I, took those first steps in Marine Corps boot camp, when I was standing in the yellow footprints getting screamed at, So it's kind of weaves around, but it's it's the story of what I went through, and how I, just pushed through, and really another takeaway is all that chirping from I call them the chirpers, the people that will just sit there and talk, right? They say, they judge you, and they and it's all just noise, man, and when you're able just to tune out that noise, things change, because you're not worrying about what all these people have to say, and then it's like the Teddy Roosevelt speech, "The Man in the Arena," right? Do you know that speech?
I'm familiar with it a little, not too
Okay,
much
it's
though.
fantastic. Uh, and I can't quote the whole speech, and it's really just the part where it's about the man in the arena, and about the critic, the critic who never does anything, but sit in the stands and judge, right? And he says, at the end of the day, uh, the critic neither knows, defeat or victory, right? And it's like, you got to read it. It's really an inspiring speech, man. And the way I look at it now is too, though, if you're not in the arena with me, I don't really care what you have to say. Because if you don't have the dirt and the sweat and the blood on your face, you're not in my shoes. You're not in the arena with me. You're in the stands judging me. Your opinion means nothing. It means absolutely nothing to me. You know. So, but you know, when you enter the arena, you might as well put the critics in the front row because they're going to be there anyway. You know. So you might as well put them in the front row and just ignore them anyway. You know. That's how I look at it now. You know. So.
Well, Gary, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. Extremely inspirational, major perspective shift, and definitely something that has impacted me a lot, this conversation.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.